Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Nitai Gora Hare Bol Hare Bol Nitai Gora Hare Bol Nitai Gora Hare Bol Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, was machen wir jetzt? Das ist eine gute Frage. Was ist der Vers? Hast du einen Vers für mich?
Deutsch oder Englisch?
Was wollt ihr? Das Wunschkonzert. Was wollt ihr? Englisch oder Deutsch? Deutsch? Who says Deutsch? See, and who says English? Majority. You know English. Das ist der Zottelkopf. Wir haben viele Zottelköpfe in ISKCON. So. Complicated. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Wir haben den Vers gestern schon gehabt, ne? Das ist der Vers von gestern, oder? Starts with Tat Vak Visargo Janataga Pletza. Yeah? Yeah, okay, no, we don't have to read the verse. Important verse, because let us talk a little bit about the historicity. Historicity means the history of the Hare Krishna movement. Historicity of the Hare Krishna movement. And there this verse is mentioned. It's a verse, it's the number 2 issue of this whole discussion. There was a discussion between Ganga Devi and Krishna. And Krishna, this is 5,000 years ago, and Krishna was just about to leave the planet when Ganga came, riding on her. What is she riding on? Not on a pony, not on a horse, not on a bull, huh? On a crocodile. Yeah, she runs on a crocodile. Crocodiles are very fearful animals. I myself was walking one day in Gainesville Park in Florida. And there was a little pathway, and here was a lake, 2 meters. And there was a huge highway, huge chaos. And so I looked at this. There was something in the water right in front of me. I looked at it close, and wow! The guy opened his mouth like this and ran after me. He was at least from here to that column, 6 meters, locker. And I panicked. I ran over, because you cannot outrun a crocodile. They're too fast, you know. So I ran in panic over the street, right next to me, and a car almost hit me, almost. And he went on the brakes, you know. And then another car came just, and so I made it to the other side. The crocodile got frightened somehow or other. He went back into the water, and a man came out of first class and said, "Man," he said, 1/10 of a second earlier, 1/10 of a second later, I would have come. You would have been dead. He said, no doubt about it. So you can see how precise Krishna is manipulating material nature. It was about 1/10 of a second, there was a window. Not more than, no less. There was a little window of 1/10 of a second, and I got through. Got almost, the guy was touching me here, nothing. I mean, I've been saved by Krishna many times. I could many stories tell you right from the beginning of my life that God is existing, no doubt about it. Because my name is Brinkman, that means he's at the brink. I've been at the brink my whole life, actually, in so many situations. So anyway, how did we get there? Ganga, she was praying to Krishna, she was crying. And you see, this is a way, the successful way of a woman, when she wants something from a man, she must cry. That is the way. The man cannot say, he may be strong like an elephant, but when his wife cries, he says, what can I do for you? If you want something, cry. This is the secret. If you want to go in with a gun, you know, the husband will run away after some time. There's no doubt about it. You know, there's a beautiful website. It's called surrenderedwife.com on the internet. And it's a woman who was a Dai feminist in the 60s. So far, she was such a fanatic, she had her womb removed in a hospital. She wanted to be a man. And now, after her whole life passed, she went on the internet and wrote this web page, the surrenderedwife.com, and said, I advise you, don't make the same mistakes as myself. I said, I chased 700 husbands away. So, and while all my friends have children and grandchildren, I have none of those. And to be not so alone, I keep a cat. I keep a cat. That's the price you pay. You know, if people are not taking their dharma, everybody has his dharma. Man has his dharma, woman has his dharma. That's the whole Bhagavad Gita is about dharma, about duty. And so if we don't do our work, our duty, no husband can be a husband and protect his wife if his wife is a husband, if she's a man in the house. Not possible, you know. And Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of England, she would, in the House of Parliament, if somebody would disagree beside her, would take a bag and smack him in the face, you know. Everybody was afraid of her because she was the man in the parliament, the only man in the parliament, practically speaking. and so Radharani is the expert. She's the expert, so much so that Krishna falls under her control because she's so surrendered, so kind to Krishna. And so this is very, very important that we understand the system that works in the spiritual world between the gods and the goddesses is the eternal system, the family system. And like Arjuna said, when the family system is destroyed, then the whole thing turns into chaos. Ultimately, the kids don't have proper role models, and nobody is satisfied. Nobody says. Ultimately, it is a disaster. And so it's important, like Krishna says, everybody has to follow his own duty. It's dangerous to follow somebody else's path, even if one does somebody else's path perfectly. In one's own path imperfectly. It's better to do one's own path imperfectly than somebody else's path perfectly. That's right from the Bhagavad Gita. No? So everybody has a place, even in this movement also. Why do we have in our history so much cruelty towards some of our Gurukul kids? Why is that? It's very simple. My older son went to Gurukul, and he said it was a concentration camp. I mean, he was so traumatized that when I was 19, 18 he was, I came to Los Angeles and he said, "Dad, we have to take a ride. Let's go, I want to talk to you." So we went to Baja California. This is from Los Angeles down to San Diego and then to Mexico. This is a peninsula going into the Pacific. And in the middle of it, he stopped. The car drove in the parking lot and cried and cried and cried, you know. I said, "Marty, what's the matter with you?" And then he came out. You know, I was so angry when I heard this. Why didn't you tell me? I would have gone and beat the crap out of these people, you know. I said, "Yes, and if you do that, then you go away and then I'm really getting it." I don't want to tell you the details of it, but you would be horrified, you know. But some of our young children have suffered. My second son, he went to a Gurukul run by a lady, Mother Rachitambari. He said it was the best experience in his life. In the same place in Mayapur. One was in hell, the other one was in heaven. So you need, both elements are very important. Like a functional family, to have a functional family, you need a husband and a wife. Otherwise the family becomes dysfunctional. I discussed one time with one lady, and she was rather a feminist, a self-asserting lady in America. And I said to her, "What is your love for Prabhupada?" And she said, "I love Prabhupada. I wrote him a book about him. In fact, the book is right here." She showed me a book. "You want to have a look at it?" I said, "Sure." So I read. And there I read on page number 7. "When I was a little girl, I was very hurt. My parents were always fighting, and ultimately they divorced." He said, "It was so painful to me." You see, there you have it. You know, there was a fight between the husband and the wife. And she knew, what is her role model? The mother. The mother was a terrorist, and the father was running away, and so she became a terrorist. It's unavoidable. It's just a role model. And so the role model we get from the Western world is totally wrong. Totally wrong. It's upside down. That women have a very important movement to play. If you have a dysfunctional family, the kids go all crazy. And if you have a dysfunctional religion, the church is unable to cater to the needs of the people. What is dysfunctional religion? When it's a man's club who run everything. One war after another, Catholic against Protestants, Christians against Muslims, Muslims against, I mean, who is doing all that? It's a man. You know, because men have a different mentality. Man means he wants to fight, you know, if there's some disagreement. And so in our religiosity, actually, inherent is a balance between men and women, because there's Radha and there's Krishna. If there's no Radha, then you end up with a macho, misogynist, radical, belligerent religion that wants to devour the other religion because he's a man. That's what it is. It's challenged, you know. So you need both. But every one of the two have distinctly different roles. Completely different roles, you know, because like I told you, my mother, if my father said, can I eat, if I asked my father, can I eat a carrot? He said, can I eat a chocolate? He said, no, eat carrot, more healthy. And my mother would wave me like this. And she would feed me all the chocolate in the world. You need these two elements, you know. You need the elements. You know, the kids are going crazy. 7 kids. Have you lived in a family with 7 kids, like living in a zoo? You know, it's always, if I sit with my brother together after 5 minutes, we have an argument, even after all these years. Because he asked me to show me my checkbook. He wants to know how much money I have. That's the first question. So in any case, so it's very important to understand the value of everybody. Everybody has a value, a particular kind of nature. And I told you yesterday in the end of my class about my mother and the undertaker and all that story, you know. We would have murdered the man, and his wife would be crying for the rest of her life. The kids wouldn't have a father. We would have murdered him, you know, because he's a man. You need this other element, and but it's a different element. If you don't have these both elements nicely presented in a religiosity, you know, in a family, it's not working. You know, you have to have your duty, and you have to have your duty. The women can save ISKCON from this whole disaster we had by a male-dominated society, particularly on the governing body. I've been there for 20 years, where in the end, the last, when everybody was packing up, oh, the children, we forgot about the children. What about the children? Let's bring them upstairs and let's sing for them. That's it. No change. And so old people and children are actually the first. Women, children should be protected, you know. And so therefore we need this both. You need Radha and you need Krishna. You need men, you need women, you need husbands and wives to have a wholesome society where everybody is happy. That's the old system. Everybody has his duty. And if this is nicely practiced, then the men are happy, the women are happy, everybody's happy. You know, because these are two different natures that belong together. You can, if you raise a family as a father, there's no mother, the kids all they become warriors, you know, and walk over everybody without any concern. And at the same time, if there's no mother, it's the same problem. No mother, no father, you know. We were running around in the house like mad. My mother couldn't control the kids. My father said, "Quiet!" That's it. We reached the boundaries. There's peace in the house in 1 second. You know? So you need both elements. And it's very important for us to understand this fighting of men against women that we have particularly, and vice versa, that we have the women against the men, that is only a symptom of a disease of dysfunctional families. Now this girl, you know, she said to them, we were always fighting, they ran away, and ultimately I was very happy as a child. I didn't have a happy childhood because there was no mother, no father, there was not function, there was fighting between the parents. The kids don't know where to look to. And if the mother is playing her part, the husband will be very happy. I mean, I tell you, in my own case, to take care of 7 kids, you do that. That's very difficult. So what did my father do? My mother told him, I can't handle that. We had 2 nannies. Nanny takes care of the children. We had 1 cook. We had a woman who cleans the house. And we had a woman who washed the laundry. There were 5 people she had on staff. And this was that was her universe. She had a staff of people to manage the affairs of household life. Now we have a washing machine and all these things may be easier. But at that time, impossible to handle. What to speak, my grandfather, they had on both sides 16 children. That's a lot of kids, you know. But they took care of them. It's not that they let the woman just in the kid. They make sure that she has everything she needs. They would supply for the needs. That the woman could happen like a queen. She's a queen of the home, and the husband is a king outside. Whatever in the home, the woman can decorate whatever, because there's nature. The husband should just be happy with that. And outside he's Bhagavan. This is how that works. And I have seen a Hindu family, the people I bought the land for, Mr. How do you say? What was his name? Mr. Krishna Kumar. He was a crook. I mean, he screwed us to get this property. And when I ring the door, the wife came into the house, to the door, and she said, 1 minute. And she came, made her husband sit, and she went inside, called her, no, please come. And there she was fanning her husband. As soon as I left the house, she told me later, I asked her, is this going on? She said, only when some guest comes. As soon as I was gone, she put down the fan and went back into the kitchen or whatever work she had. Because it's so subtle. You have to understand who is who and satisfy everybody's needs, And so the man can't get out of their role unless the women are helpful in that. And let's work in such a way that the men feel obliged to the husband. And then whatever we want, Krishna is completely controlled by Radharani. So it's very important to not be bewildered by the Western concept of female masculine. It's completely screwed since a long time. This is kaput, completely kaput. And therefore, you have so many kids taking in America, 150,000 kids are taking phenyl. I don't know whether it's phenyline or something. What is that? It's a murderous drug that kills everybody. They're all from unhappy families, I mean, I was taking drugs, and my mother, she was on her knees praying to Jesus for years on end. And ultimately, she won the battle. She won the battle. I came all the way back, because she had her power. That's a power. It's a silent power, It's not with a hammer, It was a silent power, and she completely converted me to religiosity. I didn't know about it. She told me later that she was on her knees every day, And so I'm just working on this here. It's very important to understand that everybody has a mission. And you have a mission, I have a mission, you have a mission, everybody has a mission. And we should not try to imitate somebody else's mission because we will not be happy. That woman who wrote this now on this page, surrenderdrive.com, she says, I'm so unhappy. And he advises young girls to take a course with her how to be a wife. That's what it's all about. It's all about. And we had a marriage on Inishras Island, in Ireland. And we invited the Hindus. 600 Hindus came from Belfast on a sunny day in May. The island is a dream. It's like paradise on heaven. It's so beautiful, incredibly beautiful. And so they came and we waited for the marriage. We arranged the marriage. My wife said, we need to hire a horse. Because in India, in a marriage, the husband rides on a horse, and the wife is behind the horse, and all the friends are there, the girlfriends. And there's music going before the marriage, right? And later they ride in the same coach, but before marriage, it's like that. So we rented a horse. So this lady, Chandravali, she's still around, but she was very, they said, the horse. I know how to ride. I want to ride into the arena. I said, Mother, this is not possible. Huh? Yeah.
Ich wechsle das kurz. Geht es mit dem Hörgerät?
Ja.
Ist okay?
Ja, gut.
Du musst gucken, dass das Mikrofon dann weg vom Arsch ist, sonst kratzt es.
Ist das okay?
So this Chandravali, she wanted to sit on the horse. She said, I know how to ride. My husband doesn't know how to ride. And I said, Mataji, it's not a question of ride. The tradition is the wife is behind the horse, the husband is riding. No, I want to ride the horse. He said, no, come on, if I cannot ride the horse, there will be no marriage. The Indian priest came and said, oh, we are waiting, the fire's already lit. He said, the wife doesn't want to get, she sat on the horse, he said, she doesn't want to get off the horse. Then she said, maybe we both drive on the horse, my husband and myself. And then the horse keeper said, you break the back of that poor animal. It's going to be one or none, you know. And so finally the husband gave in. He was very humiliated. He was holding the horse by the reins. And she was sitting on the horse like the Maharani of Udaipur, you know. And all the Indians. They looked at each other in shock, you know, and one said, it has to be the other way around. He said, I know that, but you talk to her. Finally, the marriage took place. After the marriage, I'm telling you because it's very interesting, how this plays out in a culture like an Indian culture. The priest came, Mr. Shukla. He said, Prithu, Prabhu, this marriage cannot work. I said, why? He said, she doesn't know how to be a wife. She doesn't know how to be a wife. And 6 months later, they divorced. And the history is, I know this girl, she's still around, but she can't find a husband. She blew out one husband after the other. And she's alone. That's what happens, you know. There's a great pleasure in, I talked to this one lady, wife of the Pujari, and she's so happy that they have children. And she will have grandchildren. When they're getting older, their kids will be grown up and they need somebody in the house. This was what grandparents do with great pleasure, to take care of their grandchildren. So it's a whole system, you know, of how society functions, how everybody is taken care of, in old age even. And so that is something we have to learn. And Prabhupada came to the West, he said, I came for cultural conquest. To change, not that we accept the standard of the Western world, we want to see that they accept our standard, because that's the only standard that actually works since millions of years. That's the idea. That's the idea of the Hare Krishna movement, to regenerate society to a standard which is reasonable, which is practiced, which is done since millions of years, which is part of every old culture. I mean, I was in Africa last year, and I learned a little bit about the blacks. There was one boy, I brought him to India because he was so, how do you say, talked down to like that by the Indians, who are mostly Vaishyas. They don't have a brain for preaching. You need to be a preacher, is not a Vaishya, it's a Brahminical function. And so in any way, I told him, when you see your mother last time, he said, half a year ago. He said, why? I said, they don't let me go see my mother. He said, you should go to her and you lift her up and give her a kiss and say, Mother, I love you. Lifting up my mother, I can't do that. That's my mother. You can't do this with your mother. And this is a kid from the jungle who's telling us what is the high understanding of a mother. A mother is like a deity for them, you know. So we can learn you go to every ancient culture, they have a natural system, they don't have the problems. My older son is married to an American, and it's difficult. The other one is married to a Mexican. She lives in heaven. He lives in heaven. Because then the Western, particularly South American people, they know how to be wives, how to be husbands. It's not even an issue. Automatically they fall into this because, why? Because they saw their parents doing it, and they saw their parents doing it. It's going on forever, you know. It's just the way how they work, you know. I mean, why do all these Indian people, you know, young people, they all go try to get good grades to go to university? Why? Because they know their duty is to take care of the parents when they get old. It's their duty. And for that they need a good job. And then when they want to come to the Hare Krishna movement in India, they have to all finish their degrees first. That's the system. We won't have in a temple a single devotee who doesn't have a degree. Because Radhanath and all these people say, because when he's getting old later, he may not want to live in the temple, then what? But if he has a degree, then he has something to build on. You know, something to build on. And so it's an old system. We should just follow the ancient advice of the sages. You know, that's the idea. Guru Shastra Sadhu. Not what's in the head. You know, the head has so many ideas, you know, and leads to disaster. Nobody's happy. And no woman can be happy by having no children or grandchildren and keeping a cat at home. You can't be happy. It's very difficult. It takes us, some people are like that, but that's very rare that they will be happy. You know, it's a natural way how things go. The natural society grows, and therefore Krishna, he showed the example. As a kid, he was that, and then later when he grew up, he was a householder. He kept so many wives, so many children, they were all taken care of. And there were millions of wives in Dwarka, not 10 or 20 or 50, millions of wives and palaces. And now when we say, where's all that? You can't see it. You know? Because Krishna can just manifest it from one moment to another. And then he wraps up the whole family, the whole dynasty, and Dwarka doesn't exist anymore. You know? Krishna can just, from one moment to another. Like if you go to Vrindavan, Krishna went to Vrindavan, to Govardhan. My God, this takes you 5 hours to get there, maybe 3 hours. He puts some footies in Vrindavan, next step is in Govardhan, next step is in Vrindavan, next step is in Germany. You know, it's no, for Krishna can do anything. So he can just manifested Dwarka from one moment to another, and from one moment to another, it was swallowed by the ocean. And so, and he teaches us the role. Krishna is God. He doesn't have any obligations. He said, I have no duties to fulfill. Yet, he said, just to teach the humanity by example, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know? It's very clear if you read, keep an eye on, this is my suggestion, keep an eye on the word duty in Bhagavad Gita. If anyone wants, I will file something like 70 verses from Bhagavad Gita just on duty. And you really understand what Vedic culture is about. Why was this for fault? That Arjuna didn't want to do his duty. He has to protect. He didn't want to protect, he was crying. He was like some a hand-picked husband, he was crying. My relatives, my relatives. And Krishna said, you can't do that. They took the kingdom. If somebody robs you, steals your house, it's one of the 5 reasons. How many reasons are there? 5 reasons or 7 reasons of an aggressor that should be killed? 5, isn't it? 5, you know. That's one of the reasons. They cheated and they took the kingdom away. And they were warriors, you know. And so Krishna says, this is completely evil. They stole everything for you. They're not inheriting this kingdom. It's you they're meant to inherit the kingdom, as your father said. And so they fought. They're fighters. Bhima was famous for fighting. There's 2 Bakasuras. The one Bakasura we all know, he came as a duck, and Krishna grabbed him and split his duck. That's that one. It's a Bakasura. Yeah. And then there was another one, when they were in exile, the Pandavas, they came to a place where they stayed in somebody's house, a Brahmin's house. At night, Kunti, she woke up and she heard somebody crying, and so she was very curious, you know, neugierig. What is that? She went to the door and she listened, you know. And she heard that the wife of the Brahmana was crying, that the king of Bihar was protected by a powerful demon. His name was, what was it? I just told about. Just escaped me. Bakasura. And the Bakasura was protecting the kingdom under one condition, that every month somebody had to be sacrificed for him because he was a man-eater. So, and the cart has to be there for food, you know. And so she heard this, she went right to Bhima and said, you know what I heard? I couldn't believe my ears. Tomorrow this guy is going to be sacrificed. Bhima said, Rai, thank you very much. I want to fight. So he sat down and drove to this spot, and while he was driving, he was hungry, he grabbed the whole, he ate the whole cart. He has a whole cart behind him. He's a beamer, he's a voracious eater. And so he came to the spot, the demon came out of the bush. How dare you to eat my food? The beamer said, one moment, I'm not finished yet. You know, I fight with you, but stuff in your face. You know? And finally, the demon attacked him really bad, and he was one blow he kicked him. He killed him, you know. So this is an extraordinary spirit. And so we're enjoying these stories how Krishna killed so many demons. Even before breakfast, a demon appeared. These demons were produced by Krishna, no doubt about it. He produced them, like he produces all difficulties in life for everybody. And so he's at the root of this suffering that we incur in the material world, because he wants that we change our life. So I'm not trying to, how do you say, reform the world. Because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, he who wants to reform the world, he should first reform himself. And there's a story to it. So in any case, it's not about reform. Everybody has to reform himself, but at the same time, how do we get direction? And the direction we get from Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. You know, this is the Vedic Shastra, the Guru, and the saintly person, they can give us direction, and we shouldn't speculate, what shall I do, how shall I act? You know, in all activities, Krishna says, depend on me and work always under my instruction, protection. In such service, you are becoming conscious of me. And if you become conscious of me, you can overcome all difficulties of material life by my grace. If you don't go down this road and act through false ego, you will be lost. There's a danger of acting through false ego. I think like this, I think like this, in my opinion, this and that. This is all material life. It has nothing to do with spiritual life. Spiritual life means that we all have to learn to surrender. And it starts at home. It starts at home. Everybody has to surrender, everybody has to take care of his duties, and then the whole society can very nicely develop. So then he says, a saint, there's some ethical instructions for everybody, but a saint is above the level of any ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Lord, the polluted atmosphere of this world will completely change, as is a result of propagating transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam. So coming back to this original story that Ganga appeared not on an elephant, on a crocodile. She cried to Krishna, once you're gone, then all these people will take a bath in my river, and I have to carry all the karmic relations. I go to Patala Lok, I go to hell. And Krishna said, don't worry about that. There's a plan B. I have a plan B. And that plan B is that, number one, there will be chanting of my name all over the world. That's where that comes from. That was the historicity of the Hare Krishna movement. Comes out of this discussion in Brahma Vavata Purana, 5,000 years ago, out of the discussion between Krishna and Ganga. So first of all, they will be chanting, my name will go all over the world. And nobody can stop that. I mean, people think they can stop the Hare Krishna movement. They're stupid. This is Krishna's movement. It will be successful 100%. No doubt about it, because it's Krishna's will, even 5,000 years it's planned. Who can say something against Krishna but a fool? You know, who can say, like these people from this television in 7 days, they say the Hare Krishna mantra, we're boosting our brain out or something, you know. It's just a scandal. This is said by by Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, God of sacrifice and the chanting of the holy name. How dare these people? How dare them? Yamaraj is waiting, you know, insulting Bhagavad Gita like that, you know. And so we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to even protect ourselves. All this should be done by Krishna, because this movement is Krishna's will. Number one, the chanting will go all over the world. And you see that. You see that. I mean, I yesterday saw some film of something like 20 blacks dancing on the beach of Tanzania. It was beautiful. It's like, wow, you know, chanting like anything, dancing like anything. And so This is the way, you just chant and chant. Whatever people think about that doesn't matter. What do they know? Prabhupada said, when people are horse, camels, asses, and die, why should we bother what they think? We know what Krishna thinks, and Krishna likes when we chant. Krishna likes us chanting his name, not because Krishna needs it, that he has such an inferiority complex that he needs to be, glorified. It's not like that. He doesn't need it. He's Purnam. But he likes it because then he knows we become purified and then we come back to him. That is the idea. That is the idea for our own good, And so, number one, chanting will go all over the world. Nobody can stop it. No question about it. Next thing. Bhagavatam will be read in every town and village. It's right there. It says here in this verse, that on the other hand, that literature which is full of description of the transcendent glories of the name, form, pastimes, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious life of the world's misdirected society. That's, listen, it was written 5,000 years ago. For a revolution in the impious life of this world's misdirected civilization. So don't be at all impressed by Western civilization or by mundane civilization. It's misdirected. It's not directed towards God, it's directed towards sex and drugs and rock and roll. That's what it is. That's the goal of life. Our life is different. And we had a court case in our temple, in Heidelberg. There was a boy who joined, a young boy, maybe 18 years old. And next day the police came, after some time the police came, in the Mangal Arati time, it said, one of the cops said, there he is. And they ran towards him, handcuffed him, and brought him out of the temple. I said, oh, what are you doing? He said, who are you? I said, the temple president. What's your name? I said, my name is Mr. Brinkman. We can't tell you what he did. We're not allowed to do that because he's not sentenced yet, right? Before sentence you can't say anything. But we know one thing, the judge wants him. He's running away from the judge. And the judge wants to see him. So, but don't worry, he said, we're going to make sure he's going to ring you once he's in prison. So he went to prison for investigation jail, Untersuchungshaft. 2 days later he called and said, he cried. He said, I smuggled some hash. He said, how much? He said, a sum. He said, well, that's nothing. Coming from a certain background, he said, that's nothing. Anyway, he said, my lawyer says, you get a government lawyer, he has no money, government lawyer said, you should talk to your authority, you should come and speak to the judge to give a favorable review. And so I went there. It was a petty session court. That means all these little cases, somebody stole, somebody beats his wife or something, small pieces, And the judge said right in me, he said, Mr. Brinkman, are you here? Is it true you want to talk to me? I said, yes, Your Honor. He said, come, speak. So I said, Your Honor, I understand that the judge is there to correct people. It's a correction institution. He's already corrected. He said, how? How's that? I said, well, we don't take drugs. Not even tea, coffee, alcohol, cigarettes, nothing. He's completely free from that habit. He doesn't need to be corrected anymore. The judge said, well, what else? He said, we are vegetarians. We are against any kind of violence. We don't therefore eat meat, fish, eggs. We are completely peaceful people. And I said, and we don't gamble. And there's no sex. The judge said, no sex. Like this, no sex. I said, only in married life and for having children. He said, that is worse than hell. Take him with you, he's sufficiently punished. Take him with you, he's sufficiently punished. There were hundreds of people, all three convicted, all three raised up and said, oh, glory to the judge! Because they could see that he had some humanity. A true story, I can't tell lies in front of the treaty. That's worse than hell. Take him with you, sufficiently punished. So you see, we are introducing these principles, and Prabhupada said that when I asked to practice these principles, including no sex except for procreation, he said, I didn't ask public opinion for that, what they think about that. What would they say? Oh, that's impossible. I didn't ask them for opinion. I don't care. That's what we do. That's what Krishna wants, and that's what we do. So you can see that this movement bring on a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected society. Such transcendental literature, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. That's the thing, you know. Therefore, it is a revolution predicted here. A revolution. The Hare Krishna movement is the most revolutionary movement in the world. It's not old stuff. There's new stuff to the Western world. You know, it's the oldest culture. We are very old. At the same time, it's the most progressive culture in the world. Most progressive. The other stuff is not progressive. It doesn't help anybody. You know. So then, number 2. Number 3, Krishna says that people will start offering their food all over the world. Because the devotees of the Lord eat only food which is offered in sacrifice. Those who don't, they eat only sin. They eat their karma. They cannot advance in Krishna consciousness. That's why religion that has not this idea of avoiding killing can never become God conscious, Prabhupada. That never, no matter how much they pray. They can't. It's impossible. Krishna says no. I mean, how do you feel when you have a family and a person visits you and says, can I ask you a question? He said, you're a young kid, a little boy. How old is he? He said, just half a year old. He's so cute, you know, and so, can I pet him? Can I eat him? I would like to roast him on a barbecue, or I would make a pakora out of him. I mean, what would the man say? He said, get out here. So in the same way, Krishna is angry about meat eating, fish eating. No, Krishna is angry about that. That's why humanity is pained by one war after the other. There's war all the time because this is a punishment for meat eating. Violence brings violence. It's a law of nature. You can't escape. If you cause violence, you experience violence. So the perpetrator, in his next life, he's going to be the victim. As a victim, he will be angry, and then he becomes a perpetrator. Again, you see, he goes through a cycle of violence. One life or one situation, he's a victim, in another life, as soon as the possibility, he becomes an angry perpetrator. He causes pain to others because he experienced pain. Right? The little children, they get beaten up in the old children because the old children were beaten when they were young kids. It goes like that, you know. So we are caught up in the material world in a cycle of violence. Any violence that we experience is coming back to us by Krishna himself. You know, God is Samoham Sarvabhuteshu is equal to everyone. So I'm not partial, I'm equal to everyone. So how come, why is somebody suffering, somebody is not? Because he said, under my supervision. Under my supervision, everybody gets a body in a family, etc., according to his karma. Man, God, without God, not even a blade of grass can move. We say that. And how do you explain to a kid that there's no answer to the suffering of the world if you're a Christian? And it says that not a blade of grass moves without God's sanction. They all believe that. So then how do we put that together? The only answer is this: God knows everything, he sees everything, he can do everything he wants. He makes sure that if you kick somebody, you get kicked. In the Bible it says, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. It's right there. And the people say, well, it doesn't mean that. It means that. It means just that. It is Bible as it is, not as you think it should be. And you have an interpretation to it. And try to discuss this verse out of its existence, what people do in the church, you know. It's as gross as that, you know. You cause somebody to suffer, you're in for the rap in your next life, sooner or later. And all the cruel deeds will follow you for years. An unremembered seed, it's a seed that you don't remember when it was planted. An unremembered seed that will grow into tears. And the night will not forget or conceal the hidden sin, the evil that you do is witnessed from within by Krishna. Is it worth the price you pay for a fleeting moment's gain, which in another life will only give you pain? Are you wandering across this world with no thoughts of time to come? Have you thought of your next birth and all the things you've done? This is a poem by Mangalananda, godmother of mine. Beautiful, you know. Have you thought of your next? The night will not forget or conceal the hidden sin, whatever people do, even in secret. Krishna sees everything, you know. And if you are violent, you get violent back. You get violent back. There's abortion. I mean, you think you get away with that? There's no doubt about it. Prabhupada said again and again, you will have born in the womb will never come out for a long time because you killed a baby in the womb, you know. And so what we learn from Western civilization, abortion is, people have abortion before breakfast. You know, it's all over, you know. And they pay a terrible price for that. No doubt about it. Yamaraj sees everything. Yamaraj is a reality. You shouldn't think Yamaraj is just... There was a boy in Moscow, he was a student at Lomonosov University, and he was an atheist. And whenever he saw the devotees going in kirtan, it was in old days when we were in Swami step, you know, the devotees in Swami step, mostly brahmacharis at that time. So there they are, the penguins. He calls the devotees the penguins, you know, penguins, you know, on kirtan. And they were laughing, you know. The devotees saw them laughing, the devotees were waved them, the devotees were friendly, you know. They thought that they were laughing, happy with them. They didn't know they were criticizing. And so this went on many times. Whenever he saw them, he was an atheist, he said, look at the fools. They started laughing, you know, and the devotees were waving them. One day, this is a true story, this boy, he drove on a motorway around Moscow. There's 7 rings or something. It's an amazing town, huge town. And the snow was blowing, and it came into this windscreen. You can't see anything. So all of a sudden there was a truck lying over the street. He drove into this truck. And he told the devotees, the light went out. And all of a sudden, a huge, like phosphoric light, huge, intense light went up. And he saw 3 people standing there, with ropes in their hands, you know, and said, Nikolai Ivanovich, you're our man today. And he ran, and the guy threw lasso, and grabbed him. And they dragged him within seconds into a beautiful palace. There was a man sitting on his throne. He said, Nikolai Ivanovich, I've been waiting for you! What has he done? Secretary, very bad life. Drinking vodka all the time, beating his girlfriend, cheating, robbing, lying, etc. Very bad life. The guy said, that is very bad. The man on the throne said, anything good? He said one thing. Every time he saw the devotees of our Lord Krishna, he said he was waving them. Waving them. Now, how many times? 27 times. The man on the throne said, Haribol! Excellent! What will you do if I give you another chance? I become a devotee. He said, you go. Haribol. He was thrown into this body. And he all of a sudden realized there were medics, you know, pushing his breast. He's coming, let's go, he's coming back. He breathes, you know. And so he went to the temple, and the devotees told him in the Moscow temple, you are so fortunate. This man you see only one time, this Yamaraj. He said, and then it's too late. You have another chance, take it. And the guy is still distributing books in Moscow. Isn't that amazing? You know, so all these things are not just fairy tale, they're real. Yamaraj is a real person. And he's waiting for everybody, you know. So we better not get into his court. You better stay out of there by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, and working with devotees may not always be easy, but better we stay right here and be saved and do our work, whatever we have to do, than falling into the hands like this. But you see, just this little thing, his life, he was a debauch. It's just this little thing. The Havikramanasusthi Pradyanam Yunavidyate, in this endeavor there's no loss. And even a little thing saves a man from the greatest type of fear. That was the situation right there, just a little bit. In this endeavor there's no loss. I was distributing books in Amsterdam. There was a boy, he said, I don't need that. I said, why? I said, I'm a Jew. He said, it's good for everybody. Ah, not for me. I said, well, let's look inside. And I opened Krishna made me open the site. He said to me, I'm from an old business family. You know, I know how to take care of myself. I said, let's look. And I opened up the Bhagavad Gita, and there was this verse, Nihabhikramanasusti. I said, in this endeavor there's no loss. He said, no loss. He said, I come from an old business family. There's always sometimes gain and sometimes, how can it be? It says here, no loss. And even little promise on this path can save a man from the greatest. I buy that book. I buy that book. He was a Jew. Classical Jew. He said, I buy that book. He became a devotee. He lives near the temple with his friend. They give large amount, he worked for the airline, gives large amount of money to the temple. Once he understood, you know. It was so wonderful, just one little verse. Krishna arranged this meeting, you know. And this is no loss. Let's take that opportunity. And so you see, Krishna is for everybody, and we have the most amazing stories that come out of book distribution, where people have undergone amazing changes. If you go to Moscow, it's just amazing, to Russia. The stories they had, they reached with two big bags, trunks of books at the airport, and they said it's too late, the aircraft is already on the runway. And so they grabbed the bags and went into the car and drove along the runway. There was a gate open, they went in there, they went right on the runway. So the plane stopped, it was just starting. The captain came and said, oh, are you crazy? What do you want? He said, we have to have these books, they have to go, I'll give you one, very important to save the world. The captain said, come on, get in, you know. So they got in and flew to the next destination, to have kirtan. I mean, how do you explain that? It's just incredible. And there's so many stories like that, where people have done incredible things to bring Krishna consciousness. There was one devotee, his name is, what is his name? I will remember it in a minute. And so I heard that there was a devotee lying. I was stopped at the Prabhupada's gate. I was on my way to Delhi. And so they stopped and said, Prithu, we have a problem. I said, what's the problem? This is devotee. And he is dying. And nobody wants him. Because dying is a whole procedure as a foreigner, whole entanglement. You have to explain why is he here, etc. And so, and he's dying. And every ashram has been there, all kick him out. And I said, I take him. You know, immediately he said, are you sure? I said, yes. So I saw this boy, he was down to something like 60 kilos, poor guy, you know. And I said to him, I'm going to take you right now. He said, are you sure? I said, are you in trouble with it? Oh, he had AIDS. That was it, he had AIDS. If that comes out, you have to explain to the government somebody has AIDS, he will be immediately put on a plane and kicked out of the country. So this is a very high-risk thing you do. I said, I don't care. I don't care, you take him. So I took him on the rickshaw on my lap. He was very skinny, you know. And I said to him, you know, don't worry. So we came to our place, Vrindam Ashram, and we nursed him. We nursed him. We had to nurse. He couldn't lift his hand. He didn't have power, you know. And so he would sit in the sun. During the daytime, we would bring him out. He would sit in the sun. He was so happy to die, you know. He was the biggest book distributor of all times. He would do sometimes 5,000 books a day. How did he do that? He went to the owner of a big factory and preached to him. Said, you have how many employees? You have 2,500. Take for everybody Bhagavad Gita. This will help you more than anything. in your life and them, you know. So he would do that. He would so large amount of Bhagavad Gita. And so one day, I put these big deities of Nita Satchinandana in front of his bed. And so one day we were sitting, all of a sudden we went, Hari, 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 Hari! He went up, you know, almost stood up, you know, and then he fell back and he was unconscious. And I said to him, Prabhu, what happened? You know, he said, well, it was Italian, miracoloso, a miracle. A miracle happened. I understand Lord Chaitanya told him, I'm going to pick you up in no time. So then one evening, Puri Maharaj called from the Gaudiya Math, very friendly to ISKCON, to Prabhupada, very respectful, always said, we have Puri Maharaj people in Vienna, they're very kind to ISKCON. I mean, we don't have that, you know, at all. And so he called, he said, I heard my disciple is there. I said to you, yes, he said, can you hear me? Can you get him to the phone? He said, Maharaj, impossible. It's at the end of the long building. Can he hear me? I said, I don't think so. He screamed. What was his name? Not now. So he called such and such. He screamed at the top of his lung, you know, get out of your body. So in the meantime, I heard some noise, some pot fell over, and some people said, drive. He had left his body at that very second. At that very, very second, you see? And why he had AIDS is a very simple story. He was a hippie and he was taking heroin. He was shooting up heroin. And so then he decided to become a devotee. His wife also. They were both on heroin, and the brother was on heroin. So then he packed everything together to move into the temple in Rome, and then his brother came in and said, let's have one shot more, just one shot more. You know, I know he already abstained, one shot. So he said, all right, let's do it. And so he did it. The brother called him 2 weeks later, 4 weeks later, something, and said, I have AIDS from the syringe. And so he was infected, you know. And this is where he died, you know, beautifully. And you see how Krishna took him home, you know. I can't remember the name right. And it was so saintly when we came to Bankabihari temple, this procession with the dead body. Spontaneous people, all the people stood up like this, threw flowers on it. I've never seen that. One woman came out of the house and opened the Arctic. And so when we came, I was actually in charge of the funeral. And so when we came there, and after we burnt the body, we all took a bath in the Yamuna. Because you have to do that, you take a bath. And then when we came out, in the middle of it, a gigantic shower came, gigantic rain. And it was unusual, it is in May. There's no question of rain in May. So when I came to Loy Bazaar, the old Ganga Prasad called me, he said, Prithu, Prabhu, come over here. He said, since hundreds of years we have not seen rain, this is very big sadhu. He said, very big sadhu. And still I can't remember his right now. Have any idea what that is?
Of what?
Who that person was?
Which person? I didn't hear the beginning of the
Oh
story.
yeah, okay, you know. Something. I'll tell you later. I have a photo of him, but I can't find it now, of course, since his name is not present in my brain. You know, beautiful. He died very beautifully. Because he worked for Krishna, and Krishna took him home. You know, that's the thing, you know. In this endeavor, there's no loss. Every little thing, you know, every tiny little thing we do for Krishna. Putana, in her previous life, she was the sister of Vamadev. You know that. She was the sister of Vamadev. Her name is, forgot her name. And so she was, when Vamadev appeared, the incarnation of Krishna as a dwarf, she was so infatuated by the child that she had motherly feelings for him for a moment. And she said, if I would have him as a child, how wonderful that would be, you know? And then when she saw that Vamandev took everything away from her brother, right? This is a story. He took everything. She became angry. Said, I will kill you if you be my child. In anger, she said, she was so angry. Next life, she became Putana. That's her previous life. She became Putana. And so when she saw the baby, Krishna, with the intention to kill him, for one moment she became overwhelmed by motherly feelings. How beautiful. Oh, this kid is so sweet, so beautiful. And then she had a so-called reality check. She said, I have to kill him. That's what I came for. And she took the car aside and tried to kill him. But for that moment of motherly feelings toward Krishna, Krishna killed her for the deed of trying to kill him. This was a punishment. At the same time, he uplifted her to be a mother in the spiritual world. How somebody can be more merciful than Krishna? How can anybody, even somebody tries to kill him, because there was a small instance of motherly feeling, that was enough for Krishna to bring him back to her back to the spiritual world. So this is, Krishna consciousness is not good as gold, it is better than gold. It's the best thing you can possibly do with your life. Nothing is better. It may be difficult. Bite the bullet, We have to all bite the bullet, like they say in England, in English, Bite the bullet, but stay with it. Stay on it. And you will see that your life is becoming glorious. It becomes more and more wonderful. Ultimately, you will see Krishna is taking you home. No doubt about it. So many cases. There was one little girl in South Africa, and she was playing in the yard. And then the wife was sitting, his mother was sitting on the veranda, looking at the street, and so a big car came, and the ball fell on the road, and he ran out of the gate, and the car grabbed this kid, and threw her into the air, And she was lying there, unconscious. The neighbors came, don't touch her, don't touch her. You may break her back, And so they brought him to the hospital. And immediately they put him under a scanner, And see if there's anything broken. And so the mother is crying and crying. The doctor came and said, you're very fortunate. He said, that's what happened. The mother was screaming, Nishingadev! And that happened when the kid was driven by the car, Nishingadev! And so, doctor came out and said, you're very fortunate. She's back to life. But there's one thing, there's this huge scratches on her breast, like a huge cat. What is that? That's the fingernail. So the kid was saved like this by Lord Nishingadev himself. This is Wandalumna says it in his traveling preaching books, this story. And there's stories and stories and stories. And in this endeavor there's no loss, there's no diminution, and everybody who walks down this road, he is the most fortunate person in the world. Every one of you, the most fortunate. Stick to it. May not be always easy, but stick to it. That's the best idea, No matter how difficult it may be. I remember when we had Hainam in Heidelberg, and this main street, Hauptstraße. We had Hainam, and some people out of the window were waving. Somebody threw a flower, then somebody threw a bag of rotten tomatoes on us. We were, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Whether it's rotten potatoes, rotten bananas, whatever, coming from the sky, and people, we would chant and chant and chant, And so that's the way to go, and you experience miracles. I remember we had a Hainam party, the Rath Yatra in Berlin, years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And we came with a Rath car to Café Kranzler. It's a famous house where people drink beer and eat, There were some beer drinkers like this, they were drinking, Said, Hare Krishna, go back to India, like this, And they were very loud, there were 10 of them, back to India, back. So I went to them and said, come on, the world is a village now, behave yourself, and what's your problem? Hare Krishna. I said to you, this is Deutschland. They said, this is Deutschland, we're in Deutschland, Deutschland. And I said, I became so upset with him, I will tell you something in good German. Ihr könnt mich mal am. Did you hear what he says? You könnt ihn mal, this is our boy. And they started embracing me and started saying, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Because I said so, they couldn't understand my language. I understood their language, and they were happy. Immediately they changed, and started singing Hare Krishna. It's amazing. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You have any questions? Oh yeah, I forgot. There were 3 things. Chanting will go all over the world. Bhagavatam will go all over the world. People will eat prasadam all over the world. And then the 4th thing is, in this movement, Krishna predicted at the time will last for 10,000 years. That's where it comes from. It's all from the Bhagavata Purana that we hear this, And not only Krishna was saying it, then he came back and actually he started to put it into praxis. Krishna says talking, he does something. He came as Lord Chaitanya to start this movement. And Bhaktisiddhanta preached this movement all over India. And then one time Brahmananda, this was told to us by Sridhar Swami, godbrother of Prabhupada, that he was sitting there and Bhaktisiddhanta said, one day, one of you will go all over the world and preach Krishna consciousness. And looked at Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, they met each other. And we looked into the eyes of Bhaktisiddhanta, and Bhaktisiddhanta looked at him. And Sridhar Swami was standing right beside him. I could see it. They were looking at each other. And so Prabhupada, it was a confirmation that I got to do that. I got to do that. And so he would go to America, distributing books, magazines in the heat of Delhi, unbelievable. Lying on the mattress, or straw mattress in the middle of winter. And this godbrother said, you've got to get a bed, otherwise you die. You have high fever. He said, I want to use every paisa for book distribution. That was his philosophy, every paisa, Unbelievable, the austerity he performed. 2 heart attacks on the ship. Then he came to New York, he had another heart attack. Brahmananda told me, he drove Prabhupada to the hospital in a wheelchair. The Indian doctor examined Prabhupada. Then he turned to Brahmananda like this, and Prabhupada could hear it. He said to him, old man is praying too much. He should simply walk. Prabhupada started laughing when he heard that old man is praying too much. He should simply walk. And Prabhupada said, but that is a good idea. This is a good idea. And from this day on, Prabhupada worked every single day. Every single day, whether good weather, bad weather, he would walk every day. And he told us yet that this walking and the massage gave him 10 years of quality life to do so many things that otherwise would not have been possible. So that's the life of Prabhupada. Up to the end, He was a warrior, He was a warrior. Five minutes more? Or are we at the end? Huh? Overtime. I tell you more, there's more at Prabhupada's bed. I know a lot of stories that happened there. It's very interesting how Prabhupada left and what was said and who was involved and who was not involved. And it's a breathtaking story. I'm happy somehow or other I got this permission to go to India for 3 weeks. It's the last day of my 3 weeks. Next day I was supposed to Germany. Prabhupada died just the day before. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Just follow Prabhupada. He's right here in Bhagavatam. This is his sound incarnation. And just following Prabhupada. He's there for everybody, whether you're old devotee, young devotee. He's equally available for everybody. Equally available. There's no question of any kind, whether this is not my disciple, it's my grandchild. There's no such a thing. He's reachable for everybody. And he will help you. He helped me so many times, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Yamaraj will not come to you.